No matter what you hear, no matter what they tell you, FireFly isn't a new rideshare application. It's a death game. I'm so sorry, Maisie. Best of luck. Darius leaned over the shoulder of the driver's seat and placed cold, circular metal against the base of my neck. My ears rang with the snap of a pressed trigger. No bullet. Instead, there was an exquisitely sharp pain, like the bite of a tattoo needle, followed quickly by the pressure of fluid building underneath my skin. Shock left me momentarily stunned, which gave him enough time to make an exit. Darius clicked the safety belt, threw his backpack over his shoulders, opened the rear door, and tumbled out of my sedan. I watched the man cascade over the asphalt through the rearview mirror, hopelessly mesmerized. The stunt looked orderly and painless, bordering on elegant. He was on his feet and brushing himself off within the span of a few seconds. Before long, Darius vanished from view, swallowed by the thick blackness of midnight Appalachia. I crashed back to reality. He vanished because my car was, of course, still barreling down the road at about 25 miles an hour. My head swung forward and my eyes widened. Fear exploded in my throat. I slammed my foot on the brake and braced for impact. Headlights illuminated a rapidly approaching blockade. A veritable junkyard of cars, 30 or 40 different vehicles, haphazardly arranged in front of a steep cliff face. The FireFly app had concealed the wall. Instead, the map showed a road that stretched on for miles, with my ex-passenger's destination listed as said cliff face. But it wasn't his destination. It was mine. The tires screeched and burned, and the scent of molten rubber coated the inside of my nose. Too little. Too late. The last thing I remember was the headlights starting to flicker, painting a sort of strobe-like effect over the empty SUV I was about to T-bone. Same with the dashboard, which glimmered 11:52 p.m. as my car's battery abruptly died. There was a split-second snapshot of motion and sound, my forehead crashing into the steering wheel, the high-pitched grinding of steel tearing through steel, raw terror skittering up my throat until it found purchase directly behind my eyes. Then a deep, transient nothingness. When I regained consciousness, it was quiet. An eerie green-blue light bathed the inside of my wrecked car. I wearily lifted my head from the steering wheel and spun around, woozy, searching for the source of the light. When I turned my head to the right, the brightness shifted in tandem, but I didn't see anything. Same with left. I performed a complete 360-degree swivel, and yet I couldn't find it, like the source of the light was stuck to the back of my neck. I raised a trembling, bloody hand to the rearview mirror and twisted it, right where the passenger had injected me with something, exactly where I had experienced that initial exquisite pain. My skin had ballooned and bubbled, forming a hollow dome about the size of a baseball. And there was something drifting around inside. A handful of little blue-green sprites. A group of incandescent beetles giving off light unlike anything I'd ever seen before, caged within the fleshy confines of my new cyst. Fireflies. I scrambled to find my phone. The impact had sent it flying off my dashboard stand and into the back seats. Thankfully, it wasn't broken. I reached backwards, grabbed it, and pushed the screen to my face. A notification from the FireFly app read, "Hello, Maisie. Please proceed to the following location before sunup. Careful, you now have a target on your back. Please do not try to brake without proper medical supervision. And remember, bee to a blossom, moth to the flame, each to his passion. What's in a name?" After concluding that my car's battery had gone belly up out of nowhere, I crawled out of the wreckage through the passenger's side. The driver's side door was too mangled for use, nearly embedded within the vacant SUV. I took a few steps, inspecting my body for damage or dysfunction. Found myself unexpectedly intact. A few cuts and bruises, but nothing life-threatening, excluding whatever was growing on the back of my neck. The messages didn't explicitly say it was life-threatening, but I mean, it was a cavernous tumor brimming with insects that sprouted from the meat along my spine, cryptically labeled a target on my back. Calling it life-threatening felt like a fair assumption. I paced back and forth aside my car, attempting to keep my panic at a minimum. The sight of the vehicular graveyard I crashed into certainly wasn't helping. Whatever was happening to me, I wasn't the first, and I didn't find that comforting. My hands fell to my knees. I folded in half. My breaths became ragged and labored. It felt like I was forcing air through lungs filled with hot sand. It took me a moment, but I found a modicum of composure, held onto it tight. Eventually, my panting slowed. There was only one thing to do. Just had to choose a direction and walk, so I forced my legs to start moving back the way I came. Figured the rest of the plan would come in time. The night was quiet, but not exactly silent. There was the soft tapping of my sneakers against the road, the on and off whispering of the wind, and a third noise I couldn't quite identify. A distant, almost imperceptibly faint thrumming was radiating from somewhere within the forest. A sound like the hovering propeller beats of a traveling drone. Whatever it is, I thought, I'm getting closer to it, because it's getting louder. Which, in retrospect, was only partially right. I was moving closer to it, yes, but it was also moving closer to me, and it wasn't just an it was a them. After 30 minutes of walking, my car and the cliff face were longer visible behind. Me. I glanced down at my phone. For better or worse, I was proceeding in the direction that was recommended by the FireFly app. I was certainly ambivalent about obeying their directive. So far, though, the app had me following the road back the way I came, and I knew that led to the nearest city. Seemed like a safe choice no matter what. Also, it didn't feel smart to dive into the evergreens and the conifers that besieged the asphalt on all sides, just to avoid doing what the app told me to. Not yet, at least. There wasn't a star hanging in the sky. Cloud cover completely obscured any guidance from the firmament. The road didn't have streetlights either. Under normal circumstances, I suppose that navigating through the dark would have been a problem. There wasn't anything normal about that night, though. Darius, if that was his real name, had made damn sure of that. I mean, I had a fucking lantern growing out of my neck like some kind of landlocked human angular fish hybrid. It had been only my second week driving for FireFly. I contemplated whether my previous customers had been real or paid actors. Maybe a few fake rides was a necessary measure to lull drivers into a false sense of normalcy and security, leading up to whatever all this was. Sure had worked wonders on me. The sight of something in the distance pulled me from thought. I squinted. My cancerous glow revealed the shape of a small building. I recognized it, an abandoned gas station. I noted it on the way up. It was a long shot, but I theorized that it may have a functional landline. Despite my phone having signal calls to 911 weren't connecting. With the ominous thrumming still swirling through the atmosphere, I raced forward, hopes swelling in my chest. As I approached, however, my pace stalled. A new, sickly sweet aroma was becoming progressively more pungent. Revulsion pushed back against my momentum. About 20 feet from the building, he finally became visible. I stopped entirely, transfixed, in the worst way possible. The gas station was little more than a lone fuel pump accompanied by a single-roomed shack. Between those two modest structures laid a body. Someone who had fallen stomach first with his right arm outstretched, reaching desperately for the shack's door, which was only inches away from his pleading fingers, a cell phone still tightly clutched in his left hand. There was a crater of missing flesh at the base of his neck. The edges were jagged, eviscerated by teeth or claws. It looked like something had mounted his back, pinned him to the ground, and bore into that specific area with frenzied purpose. It couldn't have been a coincidence. This corpse had been my predecessor, and he hadn't been dead for more than a day. Maybe he was the owner of the SUV. Nausea stampeded through my abdomen. The dead man's entire frame buzzed with jerky movement, the fitful dance of hungry rotflies. The deep blood reds and the foaming gray pinks of his decay mixed with the turquoise glow emanating from my neck to create a living hallucination, a stylized portrait depicting the coldest ravines of hell, and a tortured soul trapped therein, the re. Ominous thrumming broke my trance. It had become deafening. I looked up. There was something overhead, and it was descending quickly. I bolted. Past the gas pump, past the corpse. My hand ripped the door open, and I nearly fell inside the tiny, decrepit shop. The door swung with such force that it rebounded off its hinges. On its way back, the screen tapped my incandescent boil. It didn't slam into it. Honestly, it barely grazed the top of the cyst. Despite that, the area erupted with electric pain, an unending barrage of volcanic pins that seemed to flay the nerves from my spine. I've given birth to 3 kids. The first time without an epidural. That pain was worse. Significantly worse. Not even a contest, honestly. I muffled a blood-curdling shriek with both hands and kept moving. There was a single overturned rack of groceries in the store and a wooden counter with an aged cash register on top. I limped forward, my lamentations dying down as the thrumming became even louder, ever closer. The app's singular warning chimed in my head. Careful. You have a target on your back. Bee to a blossom, moth to the flame. I needed to hide the glow. I raced around the counter. There was a small alcove under the cash register, half filled with newspapers and travel brochures. I swept them to the floor and squatted down, edging my growth into the compartment, careful to not have it collide with the splintered wood. Another scream would have surely been the end. They were too close. Right before my head disappeared under the counter, I saw them land through the window, 3 of them. Winged and human-shaped. Massive, honeycombed eyes. I focused, spread my arms across the alcove to block the glow further. I couldn't see them, couldn't tell if they could see me either. Panic soared through my veins like a fighter jet. My legs burned with lactic acid, but I had to remain motionless. The thrumming stilled. It was replaced with bouts of manic clicking against a backdrop of the trio's heavy, pained wheezing. They paced around the front of the building, searching for me. My hips began to feel numb. I stifled a whimper as something sharp scraped against the door. Time creeped forward. It was likely no more than a few minutes, but it felt like eons came and passed. Moments before my ankles gave in, nearly. Liquefied by the tension, the thrumming resumed. Deafening at first, but it slowly faded. Once it was almost inaudible, I let myself slump to the floor. I sobbed, discharging the pain and the terror as efficiently as I could. The release was unavoidable, but it had to be brief. My phone was on. 9% battery, and it was only 2 hours till sunup. When the tears stopped falling, I realized that I needed a way to suppress the glow. Mask my presence from them. My eyes landed on the newspapers and plastic brochures strewn across the floor. I went the rest of the night without encountering any of those things. While in the gas station, I fashioned a sort of cocoon over my growth to conceal the light. Inner layers of soft newspaper covered by a single expanded plastic brochure that I constructed with tape. I manually held the edges of the cocoon taut with my fingers as I made my way towards the destination listed on the FireFly app. It didn't completely subdue the glow, and it certainly wasn't sturdy, but it would have to do in a pinch. I walked slowly and carefully, grimacing when the newspaper created too much friction against the surface of the growth, eliciting another episode of searing pain that caused me to double over for a moment before continuing. I followed the road, but stayed off to the side so I could get some additional light suppression from the canopy. The thrumming never completely went silent, and whenever it became louder than a distant buzz, I would stop and wait in the brush, hyperextending my neck to further blot out the beacon fused to my skin. As dawn started to break, I noticed 2 things. There were open metal cages in the treetops, and there was someone on the horizon. Darius. He was slouched on a cheap, foldable beach chair in the middle of the road, smoking a cigarette, legs stretched out and resting on top of his backpack. Crept towards him. He was flipping through his phone with earbuds in. The absolute nonchalance he exuded converted all of my residual terror and exhaustion into white-hot rage. When I was only a few feet away, His blue eyes finally moved from the screen. His brow furrowed in curious disbelief. Then came the revolting display of casual elation. He jumped from the chair, arms wide, grinning like an idiot. My God, Maisie! Unbelievable. Against 40-1 odds, here you are, with like 10 minutes to spare, I think. You're about to make one Swedish pharmaceutical CFO who really knows how to pick an underdog very, very happy. He chuckled warmly. The levity was quickly interrupted by a gasp. Oh, shoot. Almost forgot. Gotta send the kids to bed. Darius. Then put his attention back to his phone, tapping rapidly. Out of nowhere, a shrill, high-pitched noise started emanating from within the forest. The mechanical wail startled me, and that was the last straw. I lost control. Before I knew it, I was sprinting forward, knuckles out in front of me like the mast on a battleship. I'm happy they connected with his jaw. More than happy, actually. Ecstatic. Unfortunately, though, he didn't go down. And as I was recovering from my haymaker, Darius was unzipping his backpack. I turned, ready to continue the assault. There was a sharp pinch in my thigh, and the world began to spin. To his credit, I think he caught me as I started to fall. When my eyes fluttered open, I was home, laying in bed, and the room was nearly pitch black. Once the implications of that detail registered, I shot out from under the covers and ran to the bathroom. I inspected the base of my neck through the mirror. No boil, only a reddish circle where the growth used to be. I peered out my bedroom window, cautiously moving the blinds like I was expecting those thrumming humanoid creatures to be there, patiently waiting for me to make myself known. There was a new car parked in my driveway, 20 times nicer than my old sedan. Otherwise, the street was quiet. I spun around, eyes scanning for my phone. I found it laying on my desk in its usual place, charged to 100%. There was a notification from the FireFly app. Congratulations, Maisie. You've qualified for a promotion, from driver to handler. As stated in the fine text of your sign-on contract, said promotion is mandatory, and refusal will be met with termination. Please reach out to another ex-driver. Contact information provided on the next page. They are a veteran handler and will be onboarding you. We hope you enjoy the new car. Sincerely, your friends at Last Lighthouse Entertainment. I clicked forward. My vision blurred and my heart sank.